I just want to point out whose acting debut is playing Hamlet. Like,
Yeah.
this guy doesn't mess around. He's like, hey, you should try acting. Oh, okay. How about Hamlet?
Yeah, no, it was a very strange start to what has been a very strange and enjoyable life. Um, acting wasn't. Are we jumping in here? Do you want me to start?
Yeah,
Yeah,
get
let's
into
jump
it.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're into
Acting.
it.
I grew up playing a lot of sports. I played football. I played hockey, AAA hockey when I was a kid. Go Leafs, go! And then I was also a very good football player. And when I got to be about 15, 16, I had to choose. Chose football. Went on to Queen's University and played there, and a great experience. Excellent group of guys and some wonderful coaches. And the university was an incredible experience. And then in my third year, I took a playwriting class. I'd always written a little bit of poetry and stuff, and been interested in literature. And the professor really liked the way I read my own stuff and the way I wrote, and he encouraged me to think about acting. And in my fourth year, he was going to be directing a production of Hamlet, and it was he asked me to audition. His original idea was sort of the idea of exploring the mutable self. He was a very well-known mask maker in Canada. His name's Fred Uringer. He did a lot of masks for Stratford and stuff like that. And the idea was that each young actor would play Hamlet at a different stage in the play, and you change masks and identities. And it was a really cool idea. And during this audition process, he was doing chemistry reads to see where people would fit. And after about 3 weeks, he pulled me aside after this sort of rehearsal audition session, and he said, I've had this idea for Hamlet in my head for since I was in theater school myself, and this is going to be my last Hamlet. He was in his 70s, older gentleman, and he goes, I want to scrap that production. I want you to play Hamlet. And it was an unabridged version of the play, and I was familiar with
Wow.
Shakespeare because I studied Shakespeare literature. That same night, I kissed my now wife for the first time. So I was falling in love with her, falling in love with acting, racing back and forth between her little third-story apartment and the theater, and I just fell in love with this new life and this art form. And ignorance was bliss. I didn't think I couldn't play the part, because why would I think any differently? And I got some nice encouragement doing that, and thought, well, I got to go train somewhere, because I decided this was going to be my new life. Little did I know. And so I went to New York. My wife Danielle and I, we packed one little suitcase with some books, some clothes, and a little pair of baby jeans that she bought after our third date that each of our kids has worn since then. And we moved to New York, and I went to Circle in the Square Theater School, where Benicio del Toro went, Philip Seymour Hoffman went, and it was this amazing program for me. Everybody, acting is so funny, as you guys well know, that whatever helps you work, whatever helps you commit to a part, to be believable in a part, to access yourself in the service of a part, that's what works. And this program had a mixture of technical classical work. We had a lot of Juilliard professors working with us, voice and speech and movement and neutral mask and all of that stuff. And then we also had part of the curriculum was much more, at least Strasbergian method-based acting, sense memory, affective memory. And so it was this balance, and it fit very well. And I was challenged by my teachers, and I was encouraged by my teachers. And it was this incredible experience being in New York and learning how to play myself, learning what worked for me, what didn't work for me. Got to wrestle with some really great parts and work with some really fine actors. And also being in New York at that time was so exciting. I mean, that city always feels like it's giving birth to something exciting. And, the sounds of sirens and living in the Lower East Side in the East Village. It was powerful. It was a really powerful and alchemic experience. It changed who I was. And then we got pregnant when I was in my second year, found out Christmas of my second year, and decided that we were going to get married. And we had my oldest son, Dempsey, that summer, who's starring in Willow right now. And I just, so my life began as an actor and as a father at the same time and as a husband, and trying to figure out how that was going to work out, and also trying to figure myself out as a man growing up. I mean, I was 23 years old. I didn't know much of anything. And we just struggled. And I spent a lot of time early in my career waiting tables, obviously, auditioning, trying to figure out how to audition. That's one thing that's never covered in theater school. Well, we had no on camera component of it, and also auditioning and all, like, sort of not just the business of it, but just the psychology of that was never covered. So I was trying to, and I didn't know actors. I didn't grow up with actors. I'd never seen a play till I was 21 years old. So I had it was like a very much an undiscovered country that I was venturing forth into. But I figured things out. I went to Stratford, was asked to do an apprenticeship there, then was asked to join their first conservatory, which was another great experience. Being around these young actors and just being immersed in that intense training was fantastic. Got pregnant again, had Billy, my middle son. Shameless plug of him. He's doing press right now for When You Finish Saving the World, his sort of big film debut opposite Julianne Moore in Jesse Eisenberg's first movie. So both boys are doing that. And my daughter is in New York right now in theater school at the Maggie Flanagan Studio, which is a great program there. So I wear their artistic daring and success as a badge of my failure as a parent, because had I been more stable, perhaps they would have something normal to do with their lives. But none of us did pick anything normal to do with our lives. And I've spent a lifetime, because the stakes were so high for me. I love acting and I take it very seriously. I don't take myself terribly seriously, but I take the work seriously. And I find those honest moments that you share with another performer in the service of a story, where you really share something of yourself and you don't censor it, and it's not guarded and it's not curated. It's just you. And I always sort of titled it by beauty, not pretty, in acting. Like I feel that we just need to be human. And I think that if we're brave enough to share that, then that's what makes our work worthwhile. And professionally, I had to take every audition seriously, because I literally had mouths to feed. I mean, I had babies at home, and we struggled financially for a long time, and it was hard, and we would bounce around from apartment to apartment, and then I sort of got a break when my first sort of break was getting hired by Paul Gross in Men with Brooms, which was kind of like a Canadian classic. And he cast me, and I was quitting acting at the time. I wrote my LSATs, and I was going to go back to law school because I had kids, and I wasn't making any money at all. And I had marriage counselors telling me that I was just a moron for doing this, and it was selfish and it was immature, and who do you think you are, sort of thing. And then I got cast as Alexander the Juggernaut Yount, and Paul Gross was a really great mentor to me through that shoot. And I got hired and fired from K-19 The Widowmaker at the same time, but they still had to pay me some money. And it sort of it pivoted me away from law school. And I've been blessed with a really great career. And that said, it's a really, as you guys know, because you're both professionals, you're both in this, it's a difficult path. It's a very lonely path in a lot of ways. And it's a very, like, it lends itself to insecurity, because you're putting yourself out there and all you really have to share is yourself. And sometimes it goes great and sometimes it doesn't go great. And I think the only thing we can do is always come back to, like, why we want to do this and what can we share in an audition. Like, what honesty can we share? Like, what is that little grace note of being human and putting everything else out of the way and just being human while the camera's rolling and sharing that. So
Yeah, I love that. Man, what a great origin story you have, though, from Hamlet to New York, like,
yeah.
and then to Stratford right after that. And I love that your whole family is in the business too, which
Yes.
obviously has its challenges, but now you seem to have mostly everyone has smashed through the barriers and is working consistently and having a good time.
Well,
You
yeah,
guys are.
pardon me.
I was just gonna say you guys are like your own Brady Bunch, but in acting, you're the Bricky
Yeah.
Bunch.
Yeah, it's wild because, you know, my wife has always encouraged the kids to just, you know, really believe in themselves and has great integrity as a person, is willing to say no. And I'm much more of a pleaser, a people pleaser. But, you know, I think too many times we try to tell people what can't be done. And I've always said to my kids, one of the good things is that even if it's one in a million, like someone has to be that one. So like, why not you? And I think you have to carry that. I think that there's going to be enough. I think there's going to be enough people and enough obstacles in life, but in this career in particular, and that it's not about being rational. It's about being hopeful that you can create a meaningful life in this art. And maybe money comes and maybe money doesn't, and maybe money's there and maybe money's, you know, goes away. There's not a lot of consistency unless you're in that very, very thin sliver at the top. But there's something profound as an audience member when I see a performance that moves me. I see a film that moves me, a play that moves me. I see the generosity of that actor to give themselves in the service of that story, that movie, that play. And I just think that there's something worthwhile about that, and it's worth the pain of the journey. And there is, you know, I mean, there's pain in everything, but particularly in this art form. You know, even when it's good, you're playing maybe something that you're 15 takes in a row dealing with the death of a child or heartbreak or terror or whatever it is. So, and if you're playing it truthfully and honestly, and you're putting yourself in those situations, you're experiencing it on kind of a difficult, in a difficult way, and you carry that home with you afterwards. And that's when you're working. When you're not working, you wonder, like, where's my, like, what is my life? Like, what is this? Like, what am I doing or not doing? And but that said, there's some magic about that walk from your trailer to set or backstage when you're about to step on the stage, where you're doing something you love doing and that you can do well, and that has value.